This podcast deals with terminal illness and trauma. Some listeners may find it distressing, and listener discretion is advised. If you are struggling with your mental health, do contact your welfare officer, GP, or a mental health charity. You're listening to a podcast on the Audio Boom Network. This is A Mindful Life with me, Dave Thomas. Thank you for downloading this edition of the programme. I do hope you enjoy it. Hello, I'm joined by some wonderful people today. We've got Loz, John and Helen, and later on we're going to be speaking with Damien Isherwood. They all have something in common in the fact that they're all participants in the Curtis Palmer programme, and we're going to be talking about that in some detail later on in the podcast. John and Loz, you also have something in common in the fact that you're both suffering from a terminal illness. Perhaps, Loz, if you just give us a bit of a rundown on your situation.
So I was diagnosed 2 years ago with pancreatic cancer, which was, well, a difficult day, to say the least. Everyone's quite aware of what cancer is. This one's just on my pancreas. Prior to that, I was a police officer working. I've got 4 kids at home, wife, day-to-day, busy life, really. Didn't really have, what I'd say, huge symptoms. But I can reflect back now and go, actually, those things that I just wrote off as day-to-day life were actually all the symptoms. Yeah, it's...
John, yourself, are you a former firefighter?
Yes, I was a London Firefighter for nearly 27 years, and then had some symptoms, as Loz did. Obviously mine completely different, and again I thought it was from sport, some injuries and what have you, and then 3.5 years almost later they told me I had motor neurone disease, and there's absolutely nothing I can do to go home and get your paperwork in order, and hopefully I'd live a couple of years, 2 to 3 years. So yeah, not very nice.
How long ago was that diagnosis?
That was 10th of July 2019, so over 3 years now. So with my symptom onset, which I first noticed in beginning of 2016, I'm in my 7th year, coming towards my 8th year with this, and 95% of people will be dead now.
Right.
So it's a pretty cruel disease.
Lars, when was your diagnosis?
Mine was September 2020. 50% of people die within 3 months. The other 50% die within 6 months, and it's got a 5% survival rate to 5 years, 1% survival rate to 10 years. And that hasn't changed. Those statistics haven't changed for 40-odd years now. Even with, well, there just hasn't been advances in medical research in this particular area of cancer.
Well, I want to go on about the time you found out about your diagnosis. I know, Loz, that I think initially you hadn't been told that you had cancer.
Yeah, it wasn't that I hadn't been told, it was my ignorance, really, and misunderstanding of cancers. When people talk about stage 1, stage 2, and ultimately stage 4 cancers, what that really means. It's all to do with essentially how many tumours you have, whether you've got primary, secondary, kind of tertiary tumours, i.e. is it in different sites. And my wife's a nurse, so immediately when we were told, on day 1 that you've got tumours on your pancreas, your liver and your lymph nodes, yeah, my wife knew straight away. Like I say, I was focusing on the treatments they were talking about and how I can beat this and how I can get through the various operations, etc. And it was only sort of 2 weeks down the line or so, and we were having a chat with one of the consultants, and they were saying about the theatre surgery is not an option. The only thing we've got is palliative sort of chemo. And I was like, palliative? What do you mean palliative? And the consultant kind of looked at me and went, nobody's told you? And I was like, well, told me what? And she was like, well, this is going to significantly shorten your life. I was like, oh. And that was the moment then that I knew it was terminal. But like I say, for the first 2-3 weeks or so, I was kind of in this, I wouldn't say blissful place, but a hopeful place that obviously I'd have treatment and we'd get through it in however long.
John, do you remember the time you were diagnosed with your motor neuron disease?
Yeah, I went for an appointment. I wasn't actually going for an appointment for a diagnosis, and I went down there and we was talking about bits and pieces with a neurologist, and then she said, obviously we went through the tests, but what I found odd was she wanted to go through everything from start to finish again. So I was in there for about an hour and a half, and she said, right, so your first symptoms were... So we went through the whole scenario again from start to finish. And then she said, obviously, we thought it was your neck from your powerlifting. And then she said, but once we'd done your EMG tests, we now realise, obviously, that it's beyond a neck operation and your nervous system's getting attacked. So that's when my sort of attitude changed. And I sat there and I got a little bit concerned, to say the least. And her whole voice changed, actually. That's how I knew something wasn't right. And I knew it was a little bit more serious because her whole voice changed and she started talking very gravely. And I didn't really like that, to be honest with you. That sort of worried me. And then she sort of said to me, she said, so now we know your nervous system's getting attacked. She said, the thing is, we have a name for these diseases. She said, you've probably heard of them. She said, we don't really know a lot about it. And in my head, I actually sat there and thought, please, whatever you do, don't tell me motor neurone disease. Because I had a friend, funny enough, on my old watch at Tooting Fire Station who died of it. And he lasted a year. So, and it was a horrible death. So I sat there and in my head I was thinking, please don't tell me motor neurone disease. And then she took a deep breath. As I've said to everyone, I looked at her and she looked to me like she was going to cry. And I just thought, oh, I can't believe this. And then she took a deep breath. She said, all right, I'll tell you what name we have for these diseases. And she said, motor neurone disease. So I was sitting much like I am now, really, with my elbows on my knees. And I just looked at her and my eyes welled up, obviously. And I said to her, so what, you're telling me I'm going to die? And she said, well, there is nothing we can do for you. There's no treatment, there's no anything. So, you need to deal with it and get things in order. She said, there's a tablet you can take which might give you an extra 3 months to live. And that was it. So I said to her, look, can I go outside and get my other half? My other half's outside. So I went outside and my other half was out there. And I sort of called her over and I said to her, look, come over. So she came over, obviously I was crying. And she said, what's up? And I said to her, oh, it's not good, mate. I said, they think I've got motor neurone disease. And that was it. I went inside and we chatted, and then all I wanted to do was go round to my boys. So that was the first thing that came into my head. I said to Arlie, my other half, I said, look, let's just get round. And I just went in crying, and I suppose the hardest thing in the world was telling me boys.
I was going to ask both of you, actually, and I apologise if it sounds an obvious question, but what was the hardest thing about getting your diagnosis?
I've got to be honest, I'd say the moment I walked in the house and my boys saw me crying, they put their arms straight round me and said, what's up, Dad? And I explained to them, and I said, well, look, I've just come back from the hospital, and, obviously, my neck, we all thought it was a neck injury for 3.5 years. And then I said to them, well, look, we know it's my neck. Obviously, my neck and my arm was wasting. And they're saying, yeah. And I said, well, look, I've just come back from the hospital and I'm a little bit more ill than we thought. And they said, well, what do you mean? And I sort of said, well, look, if I'm as ill as they say that they think I am, I'm going to die. I just cried for about 2 days, to be honest. And I just, having to tell my boys that I loved them and that, I was never going to be far away, and it just went on from there, it's just heartbreaking. I'm their dad, you know what I mean? I'm their dad, I'm meant to be there for them. My boys are my heroes, and to have to tell them just all that, just broke my heart.
Lars, was that a similar experience for you?
So we had a slightly different approach. We took the decision to be, I was going to say we, my wife and I, that we would be completely honest with our children. But we also thought if they ask us anything, we'll tell them the absolute truth. We went home, we told them that Daddy was ill, we told them that, Daddy's got cancer. But we didn't tell them it was terminal because we thought they just, at this stage, they didn't need to know. They didn't need to have that pain to a certain degree if we could try and protect them a bit. But we said, but if they ask, we'll tell them. Sure. Because we're not going to lie to them. And like John said, it's a horrible, horrible conversation. And then probably 2 months or so later, my eldest son asked me. Caught me off guard a bit, if I'm honest. Sorry. And yeah, it was just really difficult.
I'm going to bring in Helen at this point. Helen Barnett, former Met Police officer. And you have a story as well to tell, I suppose.
God, how do you follow that? Don't know whether I can speak. It feels a bit insignificant, really, compared to these two. Yeah, my story goes back quite a long time, and just in a nutshell, I was involved in a series of incidents that sort of ended my police career. It was in a period of 4 years, really. The first incident was when I was 25, and I was stabbed 3 times along with 4 colleagues trying to deal with a mental health patient in the street who went berserk with a knife. And then, that really got to me. And then about a year later, I attended IRA bomb threats in the same shopping centre. They'd planted bombs and just went down with colleagues to try and evacuate the shops from the Christmas shoppers, and the bombs went off and I was caught up in the explosions from that. And then, sort of jumping on probably another year, I got shot through the knee. And probably the first incident was sort of pretty awful. That's I can remember sort of thinking, I was lying on the street thinking, God, I can't die. I've got a young son, and so that kind of sort of completely changed my life really from that point on.
So that resulted in a diagnosis of PTSD, I believe.
Yeah, so I had about 18 months off work and recovered physically from the injuries, but the cumulative effect of the trauma had sort of built up, and I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress in 95, and then discharged, medically discharged in 96.
Now, I mentioned earlier on, didn't I, that one thing you all have in common is the Curtis Palmer programme. So that nicely leads us on to, I suppose, coping strategies and whether you're at peace with the situations you're now in. John, what sort of coping strategies do you have to help?
The biggest coping strategy for me is helping my kids to cope with it. All I can do is do the best for my boys, who are my heroes. I mean, all of us in this room know my eldest boy, Chris, who's one of 4. My youngest, who's only 6, knows I'm going to die now because, he found out, which broke my heart. And what can I do? All I can do is help them to cope. So I'm doing the best for them. I'm doing the best. I'm putting them in with the right people. I'm giving them all the best of my knowledge and my fatherhood and my fathership. And that's all I can do. And I just keep telling them, just don't ever give up, boys. I'm never going to be far away. I'm always going to love you. In fact, I'll love you more when I'm not here, and you'll feel that. And just do the best you can. Just be the best man you can. And
I suppose things that you do for yourself to take you to a better place.
All the time I'm busy, I'm all right. I'm thinking of other things. It's you just get on with it. I think I cope pretty well with it, to be honest, but I'm like a little boy inside. I'm like back again when I was a little boy, and I want my dad to put his arm around me and tell him he loves me. And I want my kids to tell them they love me, and I want to put my arms around my kids and tell them I love them. I'm their dad. I should be there for them.
Lars, is there anything that you do in your day-to-day life that helps you get through?
Yeah, I mean, John's covered the dark side of it. There's when you've got a terminal diagnosis, you can't escape that. We all have moments where we sit in our room and we cry, etc. And it's really, really easy to consume yourself in that side of it. So like John, one of the coping mechanisms, and it's probably not the best coping mechanism, is almost ignoring it. Kind of going, it's not happening. Trying to make everything as normal as you can at home. Just basic things like, when I first went back to work after I was first diagnosed, that normality of making a lunchbox and ironing, well, not my shirts, I don't iron our shirts anymore, but getting my uniform ready and things. Just those normal things make everything a little bit better.
And I suppose it shows how we take normality for granted, I suppose.
Yeah, very much so. They always say, don't they, with like mental health, the first thing you should try and do is reintroduce routine. Get up at the same time, all those, those normal things. So it's certainly one way. I was at a point where I was definitely starting to spiral into a bit of a depression and go into a really bad place. And that's when I had my first interactions with Curtis Palmer around about the same time, just by pure coincidence. And then I got introduced to a different mindset and met some people who had been through some horrific injuries. Some soldiers that had, survived bombings, etc., in Afghanistan and Iraq, and just, like I say, mind-blowing injuries. And they were pretty much smiling all the time. There was nothing that was too difficult for them. They said yes to everything. There was never an option of I can't do that. It was I will do everything and anything. And it made me kind of think, what am I doing? Why I'm still reasonably physically capable. So why am I not embracing the time I have more? And that's now become a huge mantra for me, that you put a challenge in front of me, I'm going to say yes. I'd rather have a go and fail than not have a go at all. And with that, it's portraying a lesson to my children now that it doesn't matter how big the obstacle is or what the obstacle is, just take it head first, tackle it head first, deal with it. You can't hide it away, you've got to just smash it. And that vastly improved my mental health, my state of mind, yes, my coping mechanisms. By being set challenges from the charity, it gives you a goal to aim towards, it gives you a reason to go and exercise, to train, to do the bits and pieces, to prepare for whichever the next challenge is. And those, I then got introduced to those NHS 5 steps of well-being that I've hugely embraced now, which is, and I've said this many times before, that all of us will do something about our diet. We'll concentrate on what we're eating. All of us make an effort to exercise, go to a gym, go for a run, cycle, whatever it may be. We all consciously do that, but none of us think about our heads. None of us consciously do anything about our mental health, that we kind of go, and it seems stupid because our brains control everything. Yes. If we get our brain in the right place, we'll do the exercise and we'll eat the right food, and all the bits and pieces that follow. So we should really be prioritising that.
We've had a really, really difficult conversation, but I know we all know each other, and we've had some riotous laughs as well whilst we've been doing things with the Curtis Palm, haven't we? Ish, perhaps I could bring you in at this point. Damien Isherwood, who's the CEO of the charity. Damien, or Ish as he likes to be called, is a police inspector with Thames Valley, ex-British Army, former commando. How did the Curtis Palmer programme come about for you?
Yeah, so as you say, I was in the commandos, and I was very lucky to have gone around the world, to Norway, to the Arctic, to the jungles of Brunei, to Canada, to the Kalahari Desert, and learned various survival skills and expedition skills. And I've always been a mountaineer from a very early age, and I've climbed all over the world. I was voted a fellow of the Royal Geographical Society and led many military expeditions where I saw the healing effect for people on those expeditions, those military veterans. And I just wanted to extend the remit to the emergency services, in particular, I'm the National Police Lead, so extend it to police officers. Police officers with terminal illnesses, with mental health illnesses. 6 years ago, the number one and number two reason for sicknesses across the 43 forces in England and Wales were bad backs and flu, and now the number one reason is mental health wellbeing. And it seemed to me that I could write a programme that would benefit people within the service with their physical and mental health by encompassing the 5 NHS steps to mental health wellbeing, them being that we socialise with each other, not just on Facebook or through social media, that we learn new skills, that we get some physical exercise, that we give and help others, and that we practice mindfulness, i.e. concentrate on the now rather than worry about the past and the future. So we set Loz the task of the devices to Westminster, but John said to me he'd always wanted to climb a mountain called Triffin, and we'd been away in Snowdonia, and the Curtis Palmer programme paid for them all to go away to the beach for the day, and the day that we were at the beach, we climbed Triffin by 4 different routes. Those of you that know the Triffin know that it's really a scramble. There's no guide would take you up Triffin if you can't use your arms, but we managed to find a route where we could get him up, roped up between us to get up to the top of Triffin. And we got John to the top of Triffin Mountain, despite him having no arms, which is a mountain he'd always wanted to climb. So he achieved that. But today, this weekend, there was a lady who was crying about the prospect of tackling an 8-foot wall. That was her mountain. Within one day, I've seen her now climb a 40 foot wall and walk across a balancing rope and, abseil off things. And so it's about identifying people's mountains and helping them achieve it. And so we do that through our online breathing courses, which are around mindfulness and controlling stress and anxiety, for our education courses, the free, short, open university courses that we direct people to, and through our outward bound expeditions that we build up and train for. So, recently, I think just a month ago, we returned from Norway, where we hiked across the mountains for 3 days and then kite down the fjords for 5 days. And really important for me that John and Loz, who are both on the expedition, that we as a charity paid for their sons to come as carers, so there was that building process around them. Actually, Loz and John have a terminal illness, but in my eyes it doesn't define them. They have so much to offer other people. Loz, immensely physically strong, John is as well, and their banter and their sense of humour and their drive for other people is inspirational. The fact that they've come on here and be brave enough to come on here and expose themselves emotionally, is a big thing for me, because we don't talk about our mental health, we don't talk about our feelings, as blokes, we're very closed off about, and we're very guarded about exposing that softer side, about exposing our worries and needs and our love for other people. We're very guarded about that.
We're at Skirn Lodge at the moment in Devon, been doing some, I call them exercises, and probably the word doesn't really cover what we've been doing, assault courses and high wire stuff. What's the sort of benefits that people get out of that? It's not so much the physical, is it?
No, so we've got, for example, one of our service users here is a guy called Matthew Midwinter, PC from Thames Valley Police, who's involved in a traffic accident where he drove at 50 mile per hour into the side of a lorry doing a 3-point turn at night time in the road, and it caused a catastrophic brain injury. Now, he was in a coma for 3 months and lost a third of his brain. He had to have his skull 3D printed and the skin stretched over, and people thought he wouldn't walk and talk again. Well, we got him here, we got him climbing, we got him going around an assault course. And that's great for him to push his physical and mental boundaries. But what we do is we wrap around him service users with mental health, well-being struggles and PTSD to help him complete those tasks, because we know that helping others is a healing process in itself. So, for example, on this course of 15, 20 people here, we have roads policing officers with PTSD and stress. We have major crime officers suffering with stress and anxiety. We have force CID. On our breathing courses, we've had everyone from crime scene investigators to major crime to detective chief inspectors to PCs to PCSOs. So we help all the police family. And I think the thing about the Curtis Palmer programme that makes us unique is that it's free to the service users. So we try and self-fund through going through the National Lottery, for going through the Police Crime Fund, through going through Federation and holding lots of little fundraising events. And it's also that we look at a 360 process in healing. So if you come away with us, you invest yourself in the programme, and we will invest in you, so you in the future will be leading future expeditions. One of our case studies for that is a guy called Brian Tinker, who approached us. He had PTSD, came from the Met, and we're now paying for him to do his Mountain Leader Summers course. He came away with us to Norway 2022, and he will lead the 2023 expedition. So that 360 process of getting people in, getting them to a better place where they start helping others. Everything we do is a bit more organised than some other charities, in the fact that for every event that we do, we ask for written feedback. That written feedback goes to the 3 CEOs. We have a continuous improvement programme around that, and the expedition to Norway had an embedded mental health champion, an embedded medic, so there is that support around for people, both physically and mentally.
And one thing I've noticed with the charity, which again I haven't seen with other organisations, and I know John now lost the use of his arms, there are people doing unbelievably physical activities that perhaps other charities wouldn't, perhaps through purposes of insurance or risk assessments or health and safety, that wouldn't ordinarily entertain people like that.
Look, for Norway, we had John with his motor neurone disease who couldn't use his arms. We had Loz with his stage 4 cancer. We had a single leg amputee, a double leg amputee. We had a guy who suffered 63% burns. We're really lucky. We have some great staff within the programme, within the charity, and we have some great contacts without. So, for example, we had a great lad called Andy Greencombe, who's a sergeant in the TASES. He came and helped us. A medic who's ex-army medic who'd been out in Afghanistan, come and helped us. So he had all that experience. I don't think that a terminal illness is a bar to achieving physical goals, and I think the really important thing for me to try and do is to continually set Loz and John goals to look forward to. So, Loz came to us, we started walking up Penny Fan, we started doing the helping of other people in wheelchairs, and then I set him the goal of the Devizes to Westminster canoe race. So that was, canoeing 128 miles, I think, from Devizes to Westminster over a 4-day period. When I say 128 miles, people think it's not that far. Listen, if you go to the gym and you row 5,000 metres on a rowing machine, you think you've done well.
Yes, quite.
Row 38 miles a day for 4 days and you'll know about it, on a rowing machine, including that wind, weather, attrition, etc. Immense physical task for anyone, yes, alone someone with terminal illness, and to raise the funds to buy that canoe, to buy those life jackets, to train for that period, gave Loz probably about a 4 or 5 month period where his brain is concentrating on training around this physical achievement. Absolutely smashed it. Unfortunately I got dragged into one day to do 38 miles. I gave the old bluff, training's for civvies, went on it and gave the non-emotional smile, but went home and cried for about 4 days. It was horrendous. The worst thing I've ever done in my life. I want to be Viking buried in a canoe. I hate them that much. But Loz went out and he smashed it, and it gave him something to look forward to. And then, we gave him Norway to look forward to. Skerne Lodge, and we climbed Scarfell Pike with all of Loz's family on World Cancer Day, which is again, really cheeky mountain, and we climbed it in February. The temperature at the top, there's snow at the top, it was about -15. Very lucky to have the Police Crime Commissioner Matthew Barber there with us, helping us, who's a great support of the Curtis Palmer programme. I have to thank Matthew. It's about setting goals for people and about wrapping round support so we manage that risk, but about keep setting those goals. If we keep setting those goals, then we've got things to focus on other than, I was sit listening to that and I had a tear in my eye, so, it's immensely sad. I know Loz well. I just had him up at the dog section, him and his children. I had a lovely day with him and his wife and children. It's immensely sad, but if we keep setting tasks, it's something I believe that Loz and John can focus on physical achievements, physical things to train for. I think that will help their mental health well-being. Also, when the time does come, I think that their children can reflect, look at what my father achieved. Look at all the things he absolutely smashed. Despite that, I'm going to live up to that same high standard and I'm going to complete those same high things. And that's what a legacy is about. And if we can help in that process, that's what we're going to do.
I mean, you're right. It's very difficult to know what to say, isn't it, when people tell you their personal stories. But you and I know there will be people up and down the country that are living their mundane, boring lives, and at the end of it will have nothing to show for it to pass on to their children. And certainly, Helen, Loz and John and all the other people that are on Curtis Palmer, they're making memories, aren't they, that can be admired and cherished by their kids and their kids, I suppose.
Definitely, and I've told both John's boy and Loz's boy, you are part of the policing family, and therefore you're eligible for Curtis Palmer programme in the future, help as well. But I don't want people to just think, Curtis Palmer programme only help the most severely ill people. Obviously, John and Loz are extremes examples. I'm very proud to help them. They're both, I consider them, brothers. John spent Christmas with me. And I love them very much. But we're also here to help people struggling with their mental health. Everyone's mountain is at a different level, Dave. So we help from the people absolutely exasperated, stressed out at work, cannot cope anymore. So for those within the Curtis Palmer programme, I want the motto to be to get them back to work in a better place, not just to get them back to work. Yeah, we help retired officers, but we also help serving officers. It's not for me about just getting someone back to work. It's about getting people back to work in a better place, introducing those coping mechanisms. Listen, we can put as many posters up as we want around the police station. The other day I walked from the police station, I walked from custody to my office. I passed 6 different posters of people offering different types of help. I'm not interested in posters. My word is my bond. If you come in and contact me, I will help you. If you are brave enough to reach out to the Curtis Palmer programme, we will help you. We will invest in you, and we will try to improve your mental health well-being or your physical ability to achieve things.
So how do people contact the Curtis Palmer programme then if they decide they want to engage with yourselves?
So yeah, through our Facebook page, which is the Curtis Palmer programme, or through our new website, the Curtis Palmer programme. On there's an email address. You can self-refer, so anyone can self-refer themselves, or if you are a line manager and you are aware of someone who needs help, then you can refer that person internally or externally, or you need to contact me, Damien Isherwood. I'm the JOU Dog Inspector in Thames Valley Police.
So I suppose a question to all of you now is that if there are people listening to this that are in a dark place of some description, what would you say to them?
So for me, mental health is a personal battle. I know this from when my wife was very ill, and I tried everything I could to help her, and it didn't matter what I did. In reality, I ended up pushing her further away from me. It's you've got to make that step. It's the hardest step, and I know from what I'm going through and what I watched my wife go through. But once you make that first step, it only gets better from there. You know, it's a self-improvement thing that you have to do to deal with your demons and your battle. And like Ish was saying, terminal illness, it's fairly high up the Richter scale, but every battle is your battle, and it doesn't make it any less of a battle. It's still a battle, and it needs to be dealt with. So, don't feel like you need to be sicker than sick to approach. There's many things within the programme that can help. It might not be a Norway trip, the breathing courses, all the bits and pieces. There will be something that can help. I guess the message is don't belittle yourself. If you need help, you need help. It doesn't matter where you are on the scale.
Helen, what about you?
Hard to top that really, but yeah, and I'd gone for a number of a long time, lots of years, just putting all my emotions in a box, all my memories in a box with a lid on, and kind of detaching any feelings from them. And I'd tried to cope like that really, and so I think that's what Curtis Palmer's given me, is like this connection with people, and you realise you're not alone. I think people can feel very isolated, that they're the only people that are going through whatever they're going through, and that sense of connection is just invaluable. It brings everybody together, and whatever it is that's going on in your life, it's relevant to you, and it's just amazing really what we can all do for each other by coming together. So yeah, reach out and ask for help. And you are worthy for help. I think I spent a long time thinking I wasn't worthy.
That's an important point, isn't it?
My self-worth was really low, and I thought everybody else was worse than me, so I just kept quiet. And everybody is worthy of help.
Yeah, you just got to keep going. Mental health, physical health, they're all linked. I know they're different things, but they're all linked. And whether it's physical or mental, you just got to turn to others, look to others, don't bottle it up, look to other people. You'll always see someone worse off than you, no matter what your mountain is that you're climbing. Everyone's got a mountain to climb, no matter how small it is, everyone's got a mountain. Don't bottle it up, because all you're ever going to do is be on the side of that mountain. You're never going to get to the top, and you're never going to come off it. Look for a teammate, look for someone who can support you to get up to the top or back off it, whatever it is that you've got to do, because you'll be around for a lot longer as well. You'll be around a lot longer than to be able to climb other mountains. I think if you just switch off, then, you don't give yourself hope, and then in turn that doesn't give people around you hope who look for hope from you. I say it all the time, my children have got hope, because where I've been with Curtis Palmer doing these wonderful things, meeting these wonderful people and made some amazing friends, my children have in turn, and my wife knows most of the Curtis Palmer participants and organisers, And that gives me warmth, because I know when I'm gone that my wife and my children are going to be looked after by wonderful people. And it's only because I haven't lied in a corner and taken my diagnosis. I've got out there and I've got on with it. I think I've got on with it anyway. And that's benefited them. It's, you know, this is not about me. Long term, it's about them. But at the same time, they look at it and say, "Wow, look what Dad done. You know, look what he really did. What was my message? Since I've got diagnosed, what has my message been?" And hopefully people can look and say, well, actually, it was quite a powerful message, actually. Don't give up. Don't matter how big you are or small you are. Just don't ever give up.